Welcome to another episode of Canopy Practice Success. I'm here with the one and only Dan Hood. Hello, Dan.
Hey, what's going on?
Not much. I'm excited for today. You have been with Accounting Today for over 20 years as editor-in-chief since 2011.
Right.
Your knowledge of the industry, your access to the goings-on and the trends, the failures, everything is astronomical, I am sure.
We've seen a lot. We've definitely seen a lot of change over the years.
Yeah, I mean, even in that 20-year span, let's see, that takes us back to early 2000s. And that predates social media. So that's a
Yep.
whole thing of like accountants looking to each other and building communities there, even using it for marketing. I mean, Facebook, speaking of early 2000s, looked very different in the early 2000s when it launched than it does now. And that same thing applies to just UI in general and tech in general and the advancements we've made in tech. So I'd love to start by maybe hearing a few stories of things you've seen through the years that like started as whispers and you're like, what's going on here? And then it built to a larger conversation. And then I'd love to hear maybe one of each. One where you're like, okay, that fell off the map after the whispers died out, or that got bigger and crossed the chasm and is now in the accounting canon.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, what's funny is there are a lot. We have a sort of a rule of thumb here that anything that's going to change in accounting takes about 5 to 10 years, and it goes through this period of everyone in accounting says, nope, don't need that. Not going to adopt that. That's not going to change our firms, whether it's technology or how you run a firm or employee policies, anything like that. It takes anywhere from 5 to 10 years, and it goes from, nope, never going to do that. Doesn't work in accounting. Don't need it. Don't want to bother with it. Some people are doing it, whatever, but we'll never do it at our firm. I guess we have to look at this too. All right, we'll adopt it. And then, this is great. We should have done this 5 years ago. And you can follow that. You can follow that for everything to varying degrees. And I'll give you as an example of one that succeeded is the cloud. It took a decade for accountants to get on the cloud. If anyone from Canopy who was around at the time could tell you, but anyone in a software vendor could tell you there was a decade where they were just, what is wrong? Why won't they get on the cloud? Why won't accountants move to the cloud? It's so great. And this is all, roughly 2000 to 2010, 12, somewhere around there. No one would get on it. It wasn't secure. It wasn't safe. Our client data won't be safe. We'd rather have it in our offices. It's much safer in our offices, which was totally not true, but accountants felt that way. But it just took them forever to adjust to it. They would say, no, I'd rather go to my client's offices at the end of every month than clean up their QuickBooks on site kind of thing. And it really took about a decade before accountants would get comfortable with the notion of having data in the cloud and working in the cloud. And now, obviously, right, it's huge. CAS is entirely based on having accounting in the cloud and having software in there and being able to access your client's data in real time, whenever you want, from wherever you are. But for a good 10 to 12 years, it was they were constantly fighting against it, just rejecting it entirely. And for good reasons. I mean, they were concerned about safety and security and their clients' privacy and all that sort of good stuff. But it meant that it took probably 8 years longer than it should have for the profession to really start thinking about moving to the cloud in a big way. And now, it's a fantastic thing. They're there. It enabled modern practices in a way that we couldn't have even imagined in early 2000s.
The early providers at that time of not addressing that concern, or was the accountants are just way more risk averse than most buyers?
I think mostly they're way more risk averse. There was definitely an element of the vendors not quite realizing how serious the resistance was, but I think mostly it's that the resistance was that serious. Vendors were like, you're online with your own bank. Why wouldn't you trust, your bank account's online? All you're doing is you're shopping on Amazon. Why wouldn't you trust this? And I think they may have underestimated the degree to which accountants were, 1, risk averse, 2, change averse, and 3, fiercely protective of client information.
Well, to your point, like even with those two examples you gave of your banking and your Amazon, your credit card information, it's yours. It's way riskier when it's someone else's information.
Exactly. Yeah, no question. But there also there was a lot of change resistance, just sort of knee-jerk change resistance going on there as well. But and like I said, I don't think the software vendors really understood because they were so used to everybody else sort of rushing online, right? We all as consumers rushed online, and they were like, why aren't the accountants getting there? It would be so much easier for them.
It's funny, as an employee of one of these vendors, we do still list like cloud as a value prop of ours, which in any other industry I wouldn't do. I'm like, this is table stakes. This is And even it's funny, I find myself trying to be careful with the messaging I also promote with that of like the accessibility, because my personal worldview and my values are that, I have apps on my phone that are work related and I'll hop on sometimes, but I'm pretty boundaried with my work. I like that flexibility that cloud and modern day SaaS providers provide, but I never want our customers to feel like because we're in the cloud, that means you're accessible day and night and therefore you work all the time or you're on vacation working. But it's an interesting crowd to talk to about the cloud, because you get some who are, especially with CAS, where as a result, they're spearheading the remote work approach. And it's not uncommon that I do hear people who are like, no, I like taking my work with me on vacation. Um, it's interesting.
And I think it's a lot of accountants who are like to be able to be accessible, like to be able to,
Yeah.
when a client calls, I want to be able to answer, right? So it comes down to, it's a virtue, right? It's the desire to serve clients really, really well. And it's weird because you would have thought that would have been the thing they would jump on, that they would go, oh yeah, this is great. But they were like, man, I want to be able to serve my clients all the time, but only when I really want to. So it was a long time coming.
Okay, so what's an example of one that nosedived, that didn't make it past the whispers?
I think my favorite of this is blockchain. And I don't know if anybody remembers blockchain. The entire profession was sure that it was particularly going to destroy the audit profession. It was just going to, with that kind of certainty about where information is and how it's been changed and altered over time, and all the elements of the audit chain that would go into it and that sort of thing. They just assume, well, this is going to destroy the audit. No one ever really mapped out the stages by which it would destroy the audit. But I think there was a real fear of it, not necessarily a well-grounded fear, but an assumption that, this could really be a problem for us because it will, like I said, create these sort of unchangeable, unalterable records that sort of audit themselves. I think that was the assumption of it. Disappeared. There was a period where accountants were talking about it all the time, going to conferences about it, trying to learn about it, sort of the way they're approaching AI now, right? There's a little bit of a frenzy around AI, and AI is the big thing, and it's going to change everything. I do think AI will probably pan out in a way that blockchain did, which isn't to say that blockchain disappeared, right? I think it just got built into a lot of products, and we were like, oh, wait, we don't actually have to do anything with blockchain. It'll just get built into products to make them more secure and more auditable in a way that's created some great tools for auditors and for accountants, but not a challenge for them, adapt or adopt to. So there was a period where it was on everybody's mind, and then top of mind for everybody and everybody's lips. Everyone's going to conferences, having sessions about it. And I can't tell you the last time I heard blockchain in a professional capacity, in an accounting capacity, I should say.
To your point though about blockchain being built into things, I feel the same way about AI though. That accountants won't have to learn AI the way like our engineers here at Canopy do, because softwares like Canopy all have board members and shareholders who are pushing tech companies to not only build AI, but to adopt it. Like we're feeling that within our marketing team of like, okay, how are we? And we're getting trainings on how to use AI and what are different use cases or applications. And hey, how can I help you with this? And different things that I hope that means that accountants don't have to learn it, that it becomes more of a, how do I evaluate tech that has or doesn't have it?
Right. I think you're absolutely right that it will get baked into a lot of the software vendors will have to do a lot of the work with AI, right? It'll get baked into your tool. I do think that there will be some need for accountants to embrace AI in a way that they didn't have to embrace blockchain, right? Blockchain just got built in and you never heard about it again. I think we'll find that there are, particularly as agentic AI becomes more prevalent, that what you'll find is you won't have to build any of this stuff, but you will have to learn how to work with it. And it'll be a different kind of working with it than just regular software, because you'll be tasking them to do things, and you'll need to understand what they can and can't do and how to make sure that they're doing the thing you want them to do and how to check to make sure that they did it the right way. It'll be less of a technology thing and more of a management task, in the sense of, I saw somebody at an AI conference talk about the fact that this is probably the last couple of years, the next 2 years or so will be the last time where managers solely manage people, that they'll end up managing people and agents, or some form of agents, whatever form that takes as they get developed, so that you will be, as much as you're telling junior staff or people underneath you how to do a thing or what to do and managing their work and delegating to them, you'll be doing the same thing to an ever-growing number of agents. And that will be a different kind of management. And we're terrible at human management already.
Oh my
So
goodness.
I'm fascinated all the ways we could be terrible at managing agents, but
Well, at least there
it's
won't
going to
be
be,
emotion. It could just give it its feedback and then it'll delightfully say, thank you. That leads me to where I did want to spend the bulk of the conversation is, okay, what are our whisperings today? I'm going to list off a few and then I want to hear if there are some that you're seeing that I'm not aware of, which will be fun. I think Cass is still talked about in a whisper. Like people, I actually just met with a gal yesterday who I met in Boston, just to talk to her more and understand things better. And Cass was new to her. And I
really?
was like, we
Okay.
have been talking about this for 3 years, and that's the extent that I've been at Canopy. I'm sure it's been being talked about more than that. So I still feel like to your point about like that 5 to 10 year adoption, like I think Cass is nearing the end of that, hopefully. And I say hopefully because I'm a fan of it. I think another whisper I'm hearing is PE, mergers, acquisitions. We could say AI is a whisper too, though I agree with you. It's not going to go anywhere. And like the sooner you face the music of this is going to be a part of tech and stuff. Any other ones you'd like to add to the list before we delve into what the future of accounting is going to look like?
I would throw in ESG.
Okay.
I think it's on the back burner now because the current administration it's not a priority for it. But the rest of the world is focused on that kind of reporting. Reporting on environmental impacts, on social impacts, on governance impacts, and it is a huge opportunity for accountants in the sense of right now auditing and establishment of financial statements and auditing of them is a huge business for accountants. Right. There's a similar opportunity to create and audit statements, like I said, for environmental impact, government impact, social governance impact. Sorry, and social impact, I think, and we're seeing this already start up overseas in a big way, and it's going to continue there. And it's, it's the kind of thing where it's an entire other business, just as important as a financial audit. That's a natural fit for accountants in the sense
So
of they're really
another
good.
offering, another service line that they can.
A whole other service line of the same size and perhaps bigger, right? Because the whole thing is you're going to have millions of companies that have to come up with reporting around their ESG impacts. And who's better at coming up with new reporting systems than accountants, right? And then they're all going to have to get audited or have some kind of
All of them, or do you
attestation
see
to.
this only applying to like the top 500 companies in the US?
It's good. It's going to be all of them to a certain. I
Wow.
mean, there may be obviously small mom and pop shops may get away from it, but anybody who works with a Walmart or any of the major corporations, right? Because a lot of those corporations, the reporting requirements go down to everybody in their supply chain. So small
Oh,
companies that are supplying Walmart with anything, local, you're the guy who comes over when the Walmart's air conditioning goes on the fritz. You may have some reporting requirements to Walmart because Walmart has reporting requirements to, well, eventually they'll have it to the SEC.
I
This
see.
is all on the back burner in the US now, just from the new administration. It's not one of their priorities, but it's not going to go away because the rest of the world is adopting it, and eventually it will come in the United States. So even the SEC's original proposal, which is what sort of shelved or backburnered, included reporting requirements for public companies had to have some reporting requirements from all of their suppliers and partners and the people they work with, which would come down to very small companies. So essentially, in the
Okay.
end, I think the overwhelming majority of companies will have some form of reporting here.
Okay.
And I think
Crazy.
it's going to be huge amounts of money available. And it doesn't have to be accountants. It's just that they're a good fit for it, right? They
Yeah.
do this kind of thing already. So it's sort of their opportunity to
I
lose.
mean, who else would do it?
Well, exactly. But I mean, there's all kinds of, there's software companies that say, well, we can do it. Or, we can provide the systems to set it up. There's all kinds of business consultants who would say they can do it.
Yeah, and with their client base, to your point, where it's not just going to affect the top big dogs
Right.
because it cascades, it dominoes down to the people who are their vendors as well. That
Right.
and a local accounting firm that services small businesses with revenues of 5 million to 10 million will still be impacted.
Some of it's, we're already seeing California has some reporting around this. It's easy to see that becoming a state-based sort of mandate if the
Mhm.
federal government isn't doing it. And at that point, those reporting requirements are definitely going to be for companies of all sizes. So even if it may be direct, right? It may be a direct regulatory mandate as opposed to sort of the indirect trickle down from a more federal level sort of thing. But it looks like I said, everyone else in the world is doing it. We'll probably end up doing it. We just may be a little behind everybody. And if accountants don't do it, somebody else will.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else to add to the list before we jump into my 3?
No, I think your list is pretty good.
First one I listed, we'll just go to PE funding.
PE is interesting. This was one when you were talking for an example of a thing that faded away. I was going to give an example. When I first joined in 1998, is sort of just the beginning of this period of they had all these what they called consolidators or roll-ups going on, where companies, non-accounting companies, were going all over the country, buying up accounting firms, rolling them up into bigger firms. They made a bunch of bigger firms. H&R Block was doing it. American Express was doing it. A bunch of other people were in the space, rolling up all these. It was a frenzy. It was a crazy frenzy, sort of the way the PE frenzy of right now is. That's when the alternative practice structure was created, the one that PE firms now use when they buy accounting firms to. But we have this agreement with the others where we get to sit in their offices and we get to use their letterhead and we get to use their HR functions and we get to use their secretaries and we get to be part of their health plans and all that sort of stuff. And it's a little bit of a regulatory fig leaf, right? I mean, it's still the same set of partners. It's still all the same staff. They're just for legal purposes. They're a separate thing.
Okay.
That was invented. Yeah. It's very common now because everyone says, when you're owned by PE, you have to have that. But it was created or first really rolled into the accounting profession in 1999 when they had all these consolidators going on. It was huge uproar. I mean, just hundreds of firms were acquired. It was going to change the face of accounting. It was going to completely upend everything. Everything was going to be weird. All these firms, no one was going to be a regular accounting firm anymore. And by about 2004, it was all gone. 100% all gone, except for UHY and CBIZ were the only sort of remainders of that. UHY and CBIZ both had alternative practice structures. CBIZ eventually became a public company, but those are the only two firms where there was any impact. By RSM, I think, was still had some still had some connections to H&R Block, but eventually the partners of RSM bought back their firm for H&R Block and became just RSM, just a regular old accounting firm. And so by, call it 2009, really, almost no trace of this incredible wave of change that had come over the profession in 3 or 4 or 5 years. Basically no remnants of it all, except, like I said, the sort of weird structure that UHY had where they'd always say, hey, we're an alternative practice structure.
So then did partners buy back from the private equity at that time, or what happened?
It wasn't private equity. It was a weird combination. Sometimes it was H&R Block, so it was a public company, and sometimes it was an Amex. So it wasn't actually private equity, but they operated very similarly. Like they were acquiring firms, and the firms would on occasion do the alternative practice structure because they had to for regulatory reasons. But yeah, they basically just went back to being accounting firms.
Okay.
And so when you look at what's going on now with the frenzy of private equity entering in, you sort of have to ask, is this all just going to happen again? Right? They come in, they spend a lot of money, and then they discover, we don't really know what's going on here. We're not making the money we want to make. I don't think that's going to happen, but it is the sort of thing you have to sort of look back and go, well, there was this time 20 years ago where we did the same thing, where everyone was getting bought, and there was all these outside players coming in. It was going to completely change the face of accounting, and then it didn't at all. I mean, at all.
So
when you think about it.
In the real world, when it came to them servicing their clients, no one would have known that there was all of this businessing happening on the back end.
Yeah, exactly. You would know, and the whole goal was, right, for American Express and for H&R Block was like, we'll have all these accounting firms and we'll be able to offer all of these other services through accounting firms. And it just never
Which
quite
makes
panned
sense
out.
in terms of like expanding their market share and increasing their bottom line. What do you see the angle is with PE?
It's a little simpler, right? It's just they just want to make money.
Right.
It's not, they just want to, get some of the profits from accounting firms. They think it's a couple of different things. One, I think you see PE firms saying, this is a steady earner, right? The long-term model of PE had always been, we buy 10 companies, 9 of them are bad investments, but one of them is a home run, right? And we pay for the other 9 with the home run. That was sort of a standard. I think what they started to say is, well, how about we also buy some companies that are maybe not home runs, but also pretty reliable earners, even in the worst of times, pretty steady cash flow, even in the worst of times, right? There's sort of a good, if you throw a couple of those in your portfolio, suddenly you're not one winner and a bunch of losers. You're one winner, a couple of steady guys, and then some losers, because that's going to happen. But the other big element for them is, and I think this is probably a little bit bigger for a lot of PE firms, is the notion that accounting is a very fragmented market. Right, it's a lot of relatively small firms. Even when you talking about the top 100 firms, they are relatively small companies. So there's a lot of fragmentation, and I think they look at that and say there's a lot of opportunity to build these, to put a lot of firms together and create bigger organizations that have bigger economies of scale and can do all the kinds of things that larger companies could do that a smaller company can't. When they put all those together, that's something they can sell. Right, when 3 to 5 to 7 years comes along and they want to get their money back, they've got a much bigger organization to sell. They've rationalized it. They put some resources into it, we hope, and built a stronger, larger, more resilient sort of accounting practice that you can then sell to another private equity firm, sell to any other kind of investor you can think of, because you've done a lot of the cleanup work, put a lot of extra resources into it, and made it, instead of having to buy 10 separate accounting firms with smaller revenues, you got one big accounting firm that has a big regular stream of revenue coming in.
Yeah. Well, and then you layer on top of that all of the talk right now around pricing strategies. There are so many recommended best practices or ways to do it, historical ways of doing it that are being successful, to your point of like in the worst of times, they're still profitable, they're still having cash flow. And then you also add on the delta, the chasm, the talent crisis, the
Right.
difference between those entering the market and there being enough accountants to go around and the
Yeah.
need, the supply and demand there.
Right. And that's a much easier problem. One, it's a great point because there's a ton of different ways that impacts everything. But one of the big ones is it's much easier if you're a larger organization to manage those capacity issues, right? It's easier to have a big HR group, right? You could
Well,
hire, you
I'm
know,
not even thinking about it in terms of capacity. I'm thinking about it in terms of opportunity, in
yeah,
terms of being tapped out of the market. They're not. There's plenty to go around. There's no way there's going to be stagnation because it's not like accounting services are ever going to not be needed, even with AI. And AI is just going to get firms to be more efficient to address the capacity constraints, sure. But looking through this from PE's point of view, they see that, okay, well, demand is outpacing supply right now. So huge opportunity. And then there are already all of these conversations around how to more strategically price your services to have a greater revenue potential. That really is just prime for
yeah.
investment.
Think about it. If you're pricing as badly as a lot of accounting firms are right now, you could just easily make a lot more money. Think what you could do if you rationalized your pricing and got better at it. Right? I mean, it's with no extra work and no extra time, you just suddenly are seeing a lot bigger return on your client. So yeah, absolutely. It's one of those things with technology and accounting, right? We're coming off a long period of time that kind of started in the late '80s, but really got
Okay, to wrap up, I can't believe it's 30 minutes already. ESG, here to stay or will it die? I think your
here to
opinion
stay.
was clear. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, here to stay. And sort of really a whisper now, but going to be much bigger.
Yeah. Your
Uh,
prediction is it's going to grow. Prediction for AI, going to grow, going to die.
totally going to grow.
I couldn't agree
Um,
more. PE, going to grow, going to die.
I have no idea. I am torn on this because, like I said, I can think back. It could be like the 1990s, early 2000s. I think it will probably, what will happen is I don't think it'll be PE. I think it'll become just this whole thing where accounting firms can be. It can change the structure of accounting firms so that you can be anything you want. You don't have to be a traditional accounting firm. You could be a PE backed firm, but you could also have venture capital.
Oh,
You could
yeah.
also be backed by, a pension fund that just wants the steady earnings, and you just report to them in a quiet way like that. It's going to open up. I think this is my guess is that it will. It won't be PE. It'll just be this whole new range of models for accounting firms. When you look at accounting firm, you have to ask, so what kind of accounting firm are you? How are you organized? Are you one person who works with a lot of partner firms? Are you, in a part of a weird network of independent firms that share work with each other on a much more serious basis than the current networks do? There's just going to be so many options. Are you a partner, an accounting firm that also has a law firm into it, right? We're seeing some of that in Arizona and some
For
couple of
wealth
bigger firms
management.
getting in there. Exactly. You're going to be part of you're going to be an accounting firm within a wealth manager. We've got a couple of big accounting firms that did that. So yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's probably what's going to happen. It won't be PE. It'll be some different, greater
An
range of options
evolution.
of structure. So
Yeah.
I know we're
Okay. Last fun one because you talked about cloud hosting. Is it going to grow or is it going to die?
if it dies, and I don't know that it will. If it dies, it will take a long time because I think there's a lot of particularly smaller firms that rely on it don't necessarily have the tech savvy to take care of everything on their own or to rely on a vendor or to figure that out. I think so.
Yeah.
Hosting will be around at least if it doesn't last forever, it will last for a while.
Okay. Interesting prediction. I don't get that one. As someone who's grown her career in tech, I'm like, why? It's all the cloud. But like you just laid out for the first little bit of our conversation that dieheartedness with the security elements. And maybe it's just going to, to your point, stick with us a little longer.
And there's a lot of firms, right? But there's a lot of baby boomers who own firms still who are like, do I really want to spend a lot of time making a major technology revolution in my firm? Or do I just want to hang on till I retire?
To that point, my prediction is very vague, but the next 2 or 3 years, I am beyond excited for because of that. Because we're going to see so much ownership transfer, I think, in the next 2 or 3 years. I don't think it'll take 5 to 10, where we will see the people who have been averse to change or who are like, no, I'm holding on because I have an exit. And I wonder, too, to what extent we'll see that exit mentality change because of PE, where like, hey, I can get cash out now, but still be in my career. I don't have to wait for retirement. I think that as a result, as people retire, people who have maybe been anxious for the stubborn boomers to leave will then have this resurgence of tech adoption.
Yeah. I think we're going to find a lot more people who are anxious for the boomers to leave who will say, the heck with it, I'm just going to start my own.
Oh, I think we're already seeing that. Yeah. Would you say that's a whisper, or do you think that's gained traction and is now a full-on trend?
I think that's gaining traction for probably longer than we've thought. I mean, I think there's been more, but I think PE is turbocharging a little bit because there's people who are like, I just don't want to work for the PE firm, not necessarily for good reasons or bad reasons, just they have a bad impression of it.
Yeah, I think that is a whisper we probably should have called out earlier, too, of just people starting their own, because I think whether they're coming from Big Four and like, I don't want 80-hour work weeks, this kind of lifestyle, or if they're even coming from a smaller boutique local firm with an older partner that might be stagnant in their ways. I just think the barrier to entry for starting your own effective firm is so low right now, to the extent that I have even thought about it. I'm like, I know I could be the operations founder of an accounting firm and just hire my accounting talent.
This is the barriers are incredibly low, right? You don't need anything. You can do it. I wanted to jump on, you talked about, lifestyle. I think that's one thing that's a little bit of a whisper now, and I think it's going to become huge, is the notion of people saying, well, I don't have to run an accounting firm that looks like every other accounting firm. Yeah. I can run an accounting firm that if I'm just making enough for me, that's great. A little bit of a whisper now, but a lot more accountants saying, no, I don't need to do all the work that comes my way. I need to make enough money to live comfortably and to offer opportunities to the people who work for me. But I don't need to be, if we're all happy, we don't need to do more work just to do more work. Yeah. And I think it's going to become much more, people are going to get a lot more permission to say that and to think that way.
I love that.
Which is going to be much healthier for everybody, right?
Yes, we need more healthy accountants. They do such great work, and I would love to see their happiness score go up and not be on the top list of depression. And we're here to help solve that problem. Give them good tech that can automate things that they don't need to do and get your time back. Go home at 5. Yeah.
Excellent.
Okay. Well, thank you, Dan.
Cheers. Thank you, Casey. It was great.